donations unless I hit refresh here.
Okay,
I
so
hit
it's
refresh and
understandable.
yeah. No dollars at all. Not even one sympathy donation.
Yeah, he's not very popular. It's okay though.
Well, we got it was $36 to 0, so Carrie wins the bid war.
All right. So I guess whenever could start.
Yeah, I think let me just wait for confirmation here. Okay, yeah, I think audio looks good. And I'll change the information once you get going, that's fine. So we can get you started.
Okay.
Just give me a countdown whenever you're ready.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go. All right. So I did a little research about the Japanese version of this game, and I was pretty sure it was slower, but I was still curious about it. And then, out of the blue, someone offered to actually just send me a copy of it, and I was like, okay, sure. So I took the copy and played it and confirmed that it is indeed slower, but it comes with some additional challenges. The biggest time waster, though, is because in the castle center, there's this locker room with all these lizards that I have to kill, and unfortunately, on the North American version, I can despawn all of them and the door unlocks for me. But on the Japanese version, which came out after the North American version, they patched that. So if you despawn a lizard, it doesn't count as killing it. And you have to pass through that room many times. So what happens is the castle center just takes forever. And there's other minor patched things that waste a little bit of time. It's not a big deal. One of the things they changed is you can't slope jump anymore. So if you jump at a slope and you slide off the slope and you can jump in midair normally, but they patched that. So there is a way to do a midair jump, though, where you slide off a ledge using your sort of crouch slide thing that I just did, and then you can jump out of that for some reason. I'm actually quite surprised that wasn't discovered or patched, because it seems kind of obvious. All you have to do is press Z and A in succession. But that allows me to do most of the shortcuts that I need to do in this run. There's just a few changes in terms of how the camera works, the text speed obviously, the lizard room, and a couple different locations for items to appear. So that's pretty much all the difference, to my dismay, I guess. So my cartridge, as far as speedrunning went, didn't seem like it was going to be that useful, but lo and behold, this opportunity came. The JRTA marathon, which seems like the one and only time it would make sense to play the Japanese version of Castlevania 64. So I'm pretty happy with how it all turned out.
Finally got some use out of it. I guess that's not bad.
Yeah. I was gonna run the Symphony of the Night extreme glitch run for this, or at least try it, but I kind of realized that it's really just not a one-sitting run. And lately, a lot of the games I've liked to run have been a little bit more risky, I guess, in terms of like one-sitting runs. I guess I'm sort of just drawn towards, I don't know, just kind of trying my best and seeing how low I could push times. And a lot of like kind of race strategies or like marathon strategies usually don't go like full hard all out. Although sometimes people do. That Castlevania race was pretty interesting. Castlevania 4 race that just happened. So it's pretty inspiring to see like really risky, almost YOLO performances at marathons, but I don't know, maybe I've gotten scared, but I just realized the odds are too against me in some of the games that I play. This is a great game, though, for a marathon type thing, because there's plenty of backup strategies, and there's plenty of saves, so it kind of works out. Although there are risky deaths that waste time. So I got down to the switch. I used the midair Z jump instead of the slope jump. So all the difference is that I had to take more damage, which does waste a little time, but it's not a big deal. And now I'm climbing my way back up. I'm going to go ahead and use the moon card. For those who don't know, this game is a pretty unique. Well, it's not really unique, but it becomes intricate when you're trying to speedrun this game. Is the time system? There's day and night, and I was pretty curious exactly how it works, so I ended up figuring out in memory hacking software, just finding how much damage do all my attacks do when it's night versus when it's day, and I found this interesting pattern where like every hour that changes during the night, my attacks get weaker until it eventually gets half as strong as during the daytime. But during the entire day, your attacks are at maximum strength. And also during the day, vampires have half as much HP. So that combined with that fact combined with the fact that you do more damage during the day means managing day-night cycles are pretty important to kill vampires pretty quickly. So getting items like sun cards to change the time is quite useful. The moon cards are not as useful because it makes it night, and night is worse. But there's this event coming up in the 3rd level where I have to get there at a certain time of day. And in this case, I want to get there in between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. So I use the moon card back there to kind of prep my in-game time to reach about those hour ranges by the time I get to the 3rd level. So it's kind of like interesting because this game's kind of action-adventure, but there's like these other forms of management. You have to manage like what upgrade you have, and then also your sub-weapon ammo, common to other Castlevania games, and of course you're managing the in-game time as well. So it's sort of like this multitude of things that makes the game really fun to try to speedrun at least. I know a lot of people don't like this game very much, but I can understand that. Alright, this guy, unfortunately, yeah, they changed his AI so he summons these exploding skeletons. That's kind of I actually didn't even know that until now. That's something I did not notice in my other practice playthroughs. So it's kind of interesting, all these little changes. I kind of been interested in like documenting them a little bit, and there's a pretty cool website that I'm sure a lot of you know, the Cutting Room Floor, where they do a lot of that stuff. They love to just document the changes made in games and find hidden messages left by the programmers and stuff, and just kind of explore the games. And that kind of resonates with me a bit, because I feel like speedrunning's kind of an exploration of the game in a different way. Alright, this room is completely treacherous, and this first jump I have to do to this platform is kind of risky. Oh, I did not get it. So like, you have to get up there really fast, and then the platform will be just in the right position so you can make the jump. And unfortunately, I didn't make it that time. So that kind of desyncs all the platforms. And that's kind of the theme of this room, really, is that there's these really tight timings on certain platform cycles. And if you fall, you die. It's really risky. There's also bats and Medusa heads and things that try to kill you. And if you're grabbing a ledge and you get hit, you're dead as well. So that's another risk. Alright, I made it up without dying. That's the important part, because if I die, I'll lose all the power-ups I've collected up to this point. And power-ups make my primary weapon a lot stronger, which is really useful. In this case, Carrie's primary weapon is the green orb. It's green when it's at full power, and then she has two weaker versions of it that you start with until you find power-ups. And usually you want the power-ups to kind of appear just from enemy drops near the beginning of the game. Like, the earlier you get the power-ups, the better. So there is like a bit of luck, but it's kind of short-lived because you can, reset at the beginning of the game if you're going for like a really fast time, and it's not that tedious. Okay. One funny thing is that when you're trying to pick up items off the ground, the detection on which item you're actually closest to is not very good. So if there's a lot of like spoils from a boss like there were over there, it's a pretty good example of kind of an almost difficult situation, because you can accidentally pick up a sub-weapon that you don't want, and then you'll lose the holy water, and at that point you're kind of in trouble. So I don't know, it's interesting. All these like little mechanics that don't quite work the way you think they should in this game, it's kind of unintuitive, so you have to kind of learn this unintuitive way of playing the game, just because the mechanics aren't uh, they aren't as obvious as they should be, I guess. I guess you could say that the game itself needs work, but in terms of optimizing the game, it's quite interesting.
Sure, it's one of those things where just like the casual gamer is going to look at it and hate it, but
Yeah.
it creates a problem for speedrunners.
Yeah, and I think that's actually been almost a common theme with the AGDQs and old SDA runs and stuff. There's a lot of this whole almost bad games culture where everyone gets attached to some game. They know it's bad, but yet they can't help but love the game and wanna run it. I don't know. I've just seen that over and over. It's kind of funny. All right. So that was actually a pretty clean second half to that. So there's this dog jump thing I can do that's extremely hard. There's only one frame to do it. This game's 30 FPS, but every time I fail it, I like take damage. That's not right. Nope, close though. Ugh. I'm surprisingly not taking much damage here. Ugh. Usually they end up hurting you more. I wonder if they actually changed the hitbox on the dog's head attack, the bite. Anyway, I got over it, so that's cool. I was able to show that off. That skips not only those two, but this sort of demon Cerberus battle as well. And there's like kind of like this time you have to wait for each round, so it's sort of a big time save if you can do it really fast. In my case, in that instance, I didn't do it very fast, and it probably would have been faster just to kill the dogs, but that's okay. It's cool to show things off, even if it comes with a cost. Okay. So the cutscene I skipped in the Rose Garden was the event trigger I was talking about. That was only between 3 and 6 a.m. So that's why I used the moon card earlier. So once I've seen that cutscene, I can continue on, get to the storage area, and get the Garden Maze key. All right. It's funny, these simpler rooms, they also have kind of interesting speedrun issues, because there's these, like, well, for one thing, the camera. But another thing is that when the ceiling's low in a room, like jumping is like bunny hopping is the fastest form of movement in this game, so you just bunny hop over and over. But when the ceiling's low, obviously that's a problem. So sometimes you want to make the jump not as high, and then kind of plan it in a way so that you go like just under the low ceiling, and then you jump again and you just barely pass it and clear it. Alright, this is coming along pretty well. I expect trouble to first show up maybe in the castles. Actually, okay, the underground waterway is the level after this, and that's going to be always... It's always a scary thing. There's these waterfall skips you can do later that I'll talk about more later, but they're pretty risky and they're really fast, so I go for them, and often I die. Alright, so now I just have to go through the maze of the garden, and there are a couple dangers. For one, there's these two regenerating dogs that don't ever let up. You can kind of kill them, but then they respawn. And then there's also this guy called the Gardener. He looks like Frankenstein, and he wields a chainsaw. It's pretty good character design, I think. But yeah, he's very dangerous. He likes to do a third of your health in one hit. Okay, I lived. I did not. I did not get hit. But yeah, it's quite dangerous. I have enough health to survive it, but it's still a scary thought. I think the camera likes to get stuck around walls slightly easier on the Japanese version. I don't know if that's actually true, but from playing the Japanese version, it feels like there's some sort of difference in the way the camera behaves, or it gets caught more often. So, I don't know. Or maybe I'm just taking corners a little too sharp. It's hard to be sure. Alright, now for the longest straightaway in the game. Literally just bunny hopping for quite a while.
Okay. Well, I want to say thanks to ZFG for the raid, and I also want to say that we've now been hosted by over 100 different people.
That's
So
really cool.
Thanks to everybody for doing that and sharing your stream space with us. And we also have a few donations here too. We have another donation from McNuggies420. He says, weed was invented for Cosmo, $10 more for Oblivion. That's $30 total for Oblivion now. We have $5 from the Stratocaster. Cosmo, I really admire all that you do, and thank you for helping to get Japanese runners to the next AGDQ. You have made us all better people, and we support you in your new endeavors and goals.
Thanks.
And $1 from Austin. Wanted to help where I could. Awesome runs. Thank you, Austin. And finally, 10 from Masclino. Yes, at last. Put this towards Sinister One's Mike Tyson KO. Let's get these Japanese runners to AGDQ. It's about time. It's about time, I agree.
Yeah, that should be probably the most exciting part of AGDQ. Honestly, I was really looking forward to the Castlevania 4 race, and it's kind of cool to see like this sort of precursor to it here, and then maybe the live one at AGDQ if everything works out, which should be really cool.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see.
So this guy doesn't activate his AI unless I stand too close to him for too long. So I can just stand outside of his range and then spam him from afar. Unfortunately, the second phase, when you do more than half of her max... when you do more than half of her HP, she changes to mist form, and she summons bats forever. And it is possible to actually kill her without making her go to mist. And the only way to do that is to get her in some sort of animation, and then, like, so she needs to be just over half max HP, and then you get her in this long crawl animation. Oh my god, she's trolling the hell out of me. But you get her in this long crawl animation, and then you just spam her with holy water and do all the rest of her boss health before she gets out of the crawl, and that can prevent all this trolling that's happening to me right now. Unfortunately, I screwed it up, so that took quite a while. I think the bosses in this game are interesting. They're actually kind of varied in like the strategy you want to use. Even though holy water is like this overpowered thing that just destroys everything, it's not always applicable, and your fully charged main weapon's actually pretty good, so I don't know, you kind of vary it up depending on what boss you're fighting. Alright, so here's the waterfall section. Hopefully I don't die. So I have to jump past a cutscene trigger here and grab the ground, and then jump. Okay, alright, so that's one waterfall of two. I have to do that one more time later. It's always super scary to do that. Strange fact about these stairs here. If you cut that corner extremely tight, it actually fails to spawn some of the lizards, which reduces lag. So that's kind of another example of lag reduction in a Castlevania game. Alright, so the waterfall is coming, and hopefully I don't die, because then I'll have to redo the waterway, and that would be sad. The real loss, though, wouldn't be having to redo the waterway, but I would be back down to the worst possible. Oh, I died. So now I'm down to the weakest primary weapon again. I have to find power-ups. Luckily, there is one power-up in the castle center ahead, but yeah, that death is gonna cost me. So I gotta redo it. And of course, this can always lead to this, because there's two waterfalls you have to skip and you don't save in between them, typically, that kind of creates this situation where, oh, I made it past the first waterfall, yes, and then you try to get past the second one, and you die, and then you get frustrated, and then you can't do the first waterfall skip anymore, and it's this sort of vicious cycle. So I don't know. Keeping composure is always good. Alright, just heading back to the second waterfall. The way the waterfall skips work is that this water just pushes you in a direction extremely fast. But as you're getting pushed off the edge of the waterfall, there's some ground below you. And you can't stand on the ground because the waterfall pushes you away. But you do kind of hit it for a second, and you can actually trigger a jump if you time a jump just right. So that's how it works. And I was able to do it, so now we can move on. Despite losing my power-ups, still okay. Funny fact about that little room is that there is a cutscene trigger that doesn't activate until, I don't know, some amount of frames after you gain control. But you already have control, so what you can do is you can walk away immediately, just hold down, and that makes you run outside of the cutscene trigger before it can start. So you're kind of skipping a cutscene by moving before the frame counter activates the cutscene. So it's interesting how that works. It's like kind of an oversight.
By the way, I want to give an update to Hanage tweeted out that his run from that previous race was a 32:54.4 in SDA timing. That was a PV for him, so
That's incredible.
that's pretty crazy. And hopefully that means that he has a full local recording too.
Yeah, local recording is it's the future, man. Everyone should do it.
It's just security is
Yeah.
what it is.
It's just smart to do it. Alright, so this is where Japanese version loses all the time. In this room, these lizards repeatedly come out of these lockers, and they just don't let up. They just keep coming for so long. And finally, you kill them all, and they stop coming, and then the door unlocks. So on the North American version, you can just hop, skip across the room, and then all the lizards despawn, and then the door unlocks. So they changed something about the code here. Maybe they started counting the actual times the lizards died instead of seeing how many lizards were left on the screen or something like that. Maybe that's how they did it, but yeah. This room kills it. Just sort of launching energy balls and letting them die. And this also very much throws off my plan for keeping the in-game time of day at a good value. So it sort of complicates the run. I haven't really routed for this sort of situation. So I sort of just make up when to use sun cards whenever it feels appropriate. Alright, quick save here. Another funny thing about the Japanese version is that they save your save data to the cartridge and not the controller pack, which is it's kind of interesting because it's slower to save on the cartridge. So for whatever reason, the game lags like a lot more than it would on the North American version when you save. It's not, I guess, that interesting, but it does. If you do have to save, it slows down the Japanese version further. It just feels like there's many, many, many small disadvantages. One big disadvantage, which is the lizard room, and then I guess you get the advantage of shorter text, but it's not enough to make up for it. Come back, lizard. I need your key. There's some crazy text skip I discovered here. I actually accidentally found it on my first playthrough. So the lizard, he always spawns in the same position when you enter the room. And from there he picks one of 8 random locations to walk to, and he just walks in a straight line to that location. One of the 8 locations makes it so he stands extremely close to this like tomb thing. And the tomb thing has this text box when you talk to it. So basically what you can do, if you're very precise, you can actually trigger both the lizard and the tomb thing text at the same time. And really, really conveniently, The tomb text happens to be really short. The lizard text happens to be really long. It ends up only putting out the tomb text, but you still get the key from the lizard. So it's actually like this. I think it saves 5 seconds or something, but it's only going to happen 12.5% of the time because 1 in 8 chance of the lizard moving correctly. And then of course you have to execute it. And I've failed to execute it in runs because the way you have to stand and move is kind of tricky. And then I think there's also a random timer that tells the lizard when to choose his next position. So you don't know how long you have to set up before the lizard moves away. So that's something that would actually be an improvement over the record. But I don't know, for any future Castlevania runner, that's something to keep in mind. I don't know how many people will ever pick this game up, but I hope some people explore it. I did find out that recently, apparently, someone beat the Reinhardt run that I had, which was, I remember I got that run and I was thinking, wow, that was a really good run, except at the end, I kind of blew it. But it was kind of like, well, I don't really want to commit to this as much anymore. So I kind of stuck with my time on that, and I think recently someone took that time. So that's pretty cool to see that the game is alive. Despite this being, I don't know, this game has always had an extremely small community. Usually no more than 2 people would simultaneously work on it. And by work on it I mean like really try to push the game further. There's a small group of people who are learning it for fun, and that was fun to do races. Oh, whoops, that was really stupid of me. I was going to do the cog skip, but then I went too far and got stuck in the gear, so now I have to take the long way around. That's okay. The cog skip is this thing, basically my current situation right now is that I picked up the magical nitro, so if I fall any distance, I explode and die. And that's sort of an issue, and in this part, I need to get up to this higher like ledge. Even on top of the gear would be fine, but I can't go up at all because that means I'll go down a little bit and then I'll die. So the only way to go up without actually falling any distance is to wedge yourself. You have to wedge yourself in the gears, like, and it seems risky, like maybe you would blow up and die because that can happen if you get squeezed in the wrong way. But if you actually figure out how it works, it's actually kind of safe as carry. There's a similar way of doing it as Reinhardt, but the Reinhardt method is much riskier. You can do it in a certain way with carry so that it will never kill you, assuming you like do it the right way. Assuming you execute the strategy with not too much precision, you should never die. But as Reinhardt, you always risk death when you do it, and it saves so much time. So when I was doing runs of Reinhardt, it was super scary. I had to really be aware that my run could immediately just die at that point. And it does take longer to get to that part as Reinhardt, so it's sort of like this bigger time sink, all for naught kind of feeling when you just blow up. I think maybe that was one of the reasons why I liked the carry run a little bit better. And carry does have more sequence breaks. Like you noticed in the nitro room, you probably noticed that I kind of slid through a window, a solid window, and then got to the other side. Reinhardt's, his character model is too big to do that, so carry actually can slip through this like crevice and actually skip a lot of backtracking, and Reinhardt unfortunately has to backtrack. So that's one of the reasons, like these are just kind of the general reasons why you see carry being played more often. It's just the better run. But Reinhardt's still cool too. It's just sort of, it's seemingly not as an important of a run, at least not as much now. Although actually, it's kind of becoming more important now because that one guy actually picked it up and got a good time. So I don't know, maybe Reinhardt's becoming more relevant finally, even if he never appears in marathons. Alright, so I'm done with all the nitro stuff except that I just need to blow up the nitro that I've already set down, and I have to do that twice, and I can pick up this Mandragora here that allows me to detonate it. So once I got this one, I can't blow up that big wall because there's this magical seal attached to it and it prevents it from exploding. So I have to remove the seal first. And the way to remove the seal is to go up to the very top of the castle center, and I have to use my other nitro that I set and blow up that wall. So this ends up being the most intricate and by far the longest level in Castlevania 64. There's kind of like a lot of backtracking, which it seems bad, but the speedrun, it kind of works out. Like, for example, you're supposed to go through the lizard room 4 times. And, well, at least on the North American version, you can skip all the lizard fights. On this one, I unfortunately do have to fight them. And I guess Carrie goes through it 3 times, not 4 times, but Reinhardt goes through it 4 times. But, like, so you can also plan your day-night cycles in here pretty well, so that when you fight all the vampire pairs, you can just kill them really, really quickly with holy water and a fully charged green orb. So, like, if you do employ the proper strategy, this section of the game actually does get a lot shorter. Although this section on the Japanese version is very slow. There's also the European version of the game, and it's interesting. They did the classic sort of PAL. Well, let's speed up the game so it looks more like NTSC. So the game runs at a lower frame rate, but the characters move faster, and it's kind of interesting because I think because the frame rate's lower, the lag is also lower, and lag is actually a huge part. So there is a lot of potential in the European version of this game. It also does, though, have the patch glitches, so I'm assuming you'd have to fight the lizards and stuff. But that makes me wonder, would the patches be faster or slower than the faster character speeds and reduced lag? And it kind of depends on what's possible. And I think really the only big slowdown would be the lizard room. But I think elevators might be slow. Maybe those weren't like converted properly. I don't know if a lot of people have followed the Perfect Dark scene forever ago, but they found a lot of interesting differences with PAL and NTSC regarding how elevators move, and those drastically changed strategies on certain levels so that some levels were PAL advantaged and some levels were NTSC advantaged. I don't know, it's kind of interesting how all that works out.
I want to jump in just for a second and announce that we have reached $4,000 already.
That's excellent.
Two-thirds of our goal. We are one runner away from bringing all 3 to HDQ.
Feel free to read donations. At this point, I'm just going to break the seal and head all the way back down the castle. So it's a little bit of backtracking again.
Okay, well, I have the one here. This was the donation that sniped 4,000. It was an anonymous $25 donation. And it just says, nobody's going to snipe 4K. Okay, well, whatever. Mario Brothers 3, 100%, please. All right, I will put it towards that. Thank you.
Excellent.
And just to remind people again, if you donate at least $5 during this run, you'll be entered to win a Death Perler that was made by Mecha Richter. You can view that on the schedule, by the way. We linked pictures to all the prizes that you can win on the schedule, so you can take a look at it there. And if you donate at least $25 during the marathon at any point, you'll be entered to win one of 2 grand prizes. We have an AV Famicom set, and we also have a Hori N64 controller, and you get to pick your color on that between 5 different colors. So, pretty cool prizes. I encourage you to check out the schedule, which is below the Twitch stream.
Got a little confused there for a second. They did change the way some of the camera angles work here, so I'm like holding the wrong direction intuitively. It's kind of funny. Alright, just some more vampire fights. And wow, I am loaded with red jewels. I can just spam holy water all I want. I just realized I have a surplus. I do still lack a... Oh, just as I was about to say, I'm still lacking one last power-up to get the green orb back. But there it is. Got it. So I'm fully stocked. I got holy water, 95 sub-weapon ammo. I'm looking pretty good at the moment. I think the next big risk will be the bullfight, which is the most horrific fight in the game, I would say. It's just pure gruesomeness. It makes you feel sorry for the boss, and I don't know, games that do that, it's like some sort of certain emotional appeal. I know Shadow of the Colossus did that very well, and it was pretty cool. Alright, this is the last time I have to fight these bastards, so this should be over with soon. Alright. The Lizard War is finally over. Carrie reigns supreme. One more fight with these triplet vampires here, and I actually have this pretty funny, it's slightly slow, but it's an interesting strategy where you just jump in this exact pattern, and it lets you get in range for perfect holy water throws that kill them in 1 hit or 2 hits, and it's just outside the range of the vampires, so they don't actually trigger any AI. They literally just sit there, and you can just have your way. So it's kind of, it's a little slow to set it up to get in position, but having that holy water range just right makes it so you don't have to deal with any randomness there. It's pretty nice. So one last Mandragora, and I can head to the big bull fight. He's not actually called Big Bull. That's just my love for F-Zero, I guess. Black Bull. I actually don't know the name of this boss. There are official names to all these enemies. There's some sort of like obscure wiki that like covers not only the enemy names, but there was some, I guess, guide published a long time ago that actually had the internal values for the boss health. And after I was trying to figure out what the boss health was, I stumbled across that wiki, and it made my job a lot easier because it was already written down. All right,
I find that's really common. Like, people don't know the names of their enemies in the game.
Yeah. Because it's not really the name that matters when you're speedrunning. It's more like,
Right.
well, what does it do? How do I beat it fast?
See, I always thought it'd be fun to just quiz speedrunners sometime on their game and see how much they really know about it, because focus on the speedrun route, you eliminate so much.
I actually have a funny story about that. There's legendary Zelda tool-assisted runner, Mr. Grunts. And he found this new Majora's Mask skip where you would hover over this Zora like very precisely, and then cancel your hover and fall to the ground, and then you have like 1 frame to open the door that the Zora's guarding. And if you could do it just right, you could get in the door. And he's like, the only problem is I don't remember how to actually get in this room normally. And it turns out all you had to do is put on the Zora mask and talk to the guy. So that was kind of made fun of for a bit, because
Nice.
this guy with really deep mechanical knowledge of Majora's Mask didn't know
Didn't know the basic facts.
didn't know the
Yeah.
basic thing. It's kind of funny. Alright, so that was the gruesome bull death. Anyway, one more boss here. This boss actually has an infinite loop you can trap it in. So it shoots these blue balls, and then if you stand still, it shoots these orange balls, and you get really close, it tries to freeze you, or she tries to freeze you rather. And she will keep trying to freeze you, but if you stay as close as possible, you're inside of her range. Like, her attack hitbox is outside of you. So you can just sit safely right next to her and just charge up orbs, and that's the end of the boss fight. And something funny about that fight as well is there's this programming oversight in the way that boss was coded, because there's some sort of code in there where if she doesn't ever throw the orange orbs but she still dies, then the game locks up and it just crashes. So I'm assuming Yeah, that was kind of weird to figure out because there was a period of time where Christian F23 and I were running this game, and we would just crash the game on that boss fight like frequently because what we would do is we would just get as close as we could as fast as possible and not let her throw the orange orbs, and then we would get her in the infinite loop, kill her, and then well the game locks up because you weren't supposed to do that. I don't know. It's pretty funny. Alright, so this is the Tower of Science, and Tower of Science is extremely dangerous. These little, okay. Had to do some maneuvers there. These little electric beams, there's several different types of them, and which type they are is governed by RNG when you enter the area. So every time you play this, it's a different pattern, but the patterns themselves, you can like recognize which pattern it is by like observing it. And then also these blocks come out at regular like half-hour intervals or close to half-hour intervals in in-game time. So you can kind of like predict when they're coming. But the ones going down the ones like just kind of drifting down, those ones are also random based on if they're in the middle of the hallway, the left of the hallway, or the right of the hallway. So you have all these different random factors working together to create this kind of mess you have to jump around and make your way through, and it's, I don't know, it's a challenge. This part is always really scary because you've been playing for such a long time to get to this point. Like, we're well into the second half of this run now, and when you get here in a really good run, the Tower of Science is terrifying. And not just that section, but this section too. This weird room with these turrets. There's a lot of extreme danger coming up. There's this one jump. It's almost like a leap of faith. Sometimes Carrie doesn't like to grab the edge, and you also have to have pretty good control over like exactly what angle you're facing when you jump. And once you jump, you have to maintain that speed, so like the camera's rotating, then you have to compensate for the camera's rotation by rotating the control stick in the direction you were initially jumping as the camera spins. So you have to kind of like do that, and then also worry about these random turrets. And if you get hit by one of the turrets, it's extremely likely you die. So that's coming up in I don't know, in like 15 seconds. So it's definitely one of the big tension points. And there are various strategies for this, but some are faster than others, but they're all quite risky. Okay. In this case, I can use an audio cue to tell when to climb up and then make it across. Okay. Okay, so that was successful. Basically, what you have is you have a ceiling turret shooting at you, and you also have a ground turret shooting at you simultaneously, and they locate you and start shooting at you at different times depending on where they were in the random rotation and also just kind of how you moved through the room. So there's like a lot of different possible outcomes for that jump, and sometimes I think it might just be a run ender period if you try to execute the fastest possible strategy, but it's hard to say. Like, this is actually kind of like some of the problems in this game are kind of complicated just because of the number of overlapping factors, like the turrets versus the camera versus the other turret, which is in a different RNG like pattern, you know. So it's just like a lot of like brainstorming to figure out how to navigate and not die extremely frequently. Okay, well, the Tower of Science has passed all the danger now, and all I have to do is proceed onward to the Tower of Sorcery, which is yet an even more treacherous area. It's like one of the last big platforming sections. So this level is crafted mostly of nothing, and if you fall into the nothing, you die. So you have to follow the path. And eventually you get these Mega Man platforms that disappear and reappear. And then you have to deal with these crystal switch things that you have to hit, and you have some enemies as well. And there's a lot of things to worry about, specifically with the timing of platforms and all that. And then there's some jumps near the very end of this that you kind of have to, if you want to do them fast, you have to kind of do them without being able to see where you're going. So you have to have kind of a very good knowledge of what's next. So this is a part right here actually where I have to do a couple jumps without knowing without being able to see what I'm jumping at. And I'm pretty used to that section. It's not that bad. But there's more of that near the very end of this. Oh, that was scary. And yeah, this is where it gets pretty hectic. Luckily, there's a save point in this middle part right here. Alright, so these platforms, I have to grab the edge of one of these, and then it takes forever to pull myself up, so I had better make sure that I have enough time to. Then I kill this thing, which is actually a switch, and that raises this next platform over here. And then another thing that I noticed is that these green platforms actually slowly bob up and down, and that's on its own sort of timer, and like usually it's a different part every time you do it. So when you get up to here, there's this jump you can do that I'll try to do. Yeah, see, I clipped upward, so I was able to not grab the ledge there, which is not only a lot faster, but a lot safer, considering that there's these creatures that like to hit you and knock you off. So that was actually pretty good. That's most of the treacherous platforming in the game out of the way. There is one more platforming level coming up, but it's less of a problem than those two. So if everything goes to plan, this is looking like yet another run that could have been good but was tarnished by a waterfall death. This is a very common type of run for me, I think, when I run this game. Especially in marathon situation. The waterfall is always my biggest enemy. Okay, so this boss is interesting because every other attack you have to kind of weave in between her crystal shield. But after you hit her, as long as you don't directly look at her, she won't put up another shield, which means you can use your homing main orb to kill her without her putting up another shield, and that saves a huge amount of time. And if you plan the day-night cycle right, you can also kill her, I think it's in 5 fully charged orbs, just barely does it. And that's actually another place in the record run. I lost, I think, a grand total of 6 seconds or 7 seconds in that fight. And that was one of my best runs I've done. So that is one place where someone could improve it if they tried hard enough. Alright, so this is the last platforming level, and there's one really treacherous room, which is the next room, and there's one room that could waste a lot of time if I don't grab the key and if I have trouble climbing up. But usually I wouldn't die in the second room. But this next room right here, this room, there's this tricky point where I have to jump back to this little bridge. And it's not a jump you're supposed to make, but it's a jump you can make. So yeah, I get this key here, and then I have to jump around the corner. And this is kind of insane, because not only do you have these 2 sets of fireballs, and you can't see one of them, but if you try to jump in the very left edge of that corner, there's actually part of a polygon sticking out just a tiny bit. So you can't actually grind the wall and then go off. You have to actually make sure you're not touching the wall when you jump out. And that little tiny polygon actually kind of heavily affects your ability to jump out of that corner. So it's a really awkward jump to do. But that worked out well enough.
Walconut would like to remind you all that if you want money, click on that donate button and type in how much you want. Thanks, Walconut.
Alright, the final stairway to Dracula. Dracula actually has quite a few phases in this game, and there's a couple interesting things here. Like, if you spend enough money in the game, you can get a boss fight. I think it's enough money. And then if you spend enough days until you finally get here, that triggers another different sequence. And there's a lot of there's a lot of weird like Easter egg kind of stuff at the end of the game here. But the main thing is that you can get the best ending simply by beating the game in a relatively quick manner, as long as you don't take forever. And then another requirement though is that you don't play on easy. If you play on easy, the game actually ends after the castle center. It's pretty hilarious. I don't know why they thought that was a good decision, but they basically said, well, good job on making it this far on easy. Time to start all over again on normal. And you lost all your progress, by the way. So, I don't know. It's it's a pretty troll thing to do. But it does mean that to beat the game, you have to play it on normal, not easy. There is a unlockable hard difficulty, and it does a couple weird things. I never looked into it too much, but it does change some properties. And I don't know. I've never done a serious run of it, but I guess someone could if they wanted to. So that's actually a pretty good first Dracula fight. It's pretty much the classic, iconic Dracula fight. He just teleports around his throne room and shoots fireballs and stuff. The next one, I like to call the next Dracula Anime Dracula, because the first Dracula was just a puppet. Here's the real Dracula, and he's this purple-haired dude. Purple-haired anime guy. So, so now I can actually use the stereo sound on my headset to determine where he's teleporting to, if I can't see him. So I look at two of the positions he can teleport to, and I listen to the other two positions. And sometimes he does this simple teleportation where he just teleports to a single location, and you can just follow that easily. Like, he's actually being quite nice about it right now. Normally he's a bit more of a jerk. Yeah, so thanks Stereo Audio for just killing that guy faster, because I wouldn't have been able to do it with mono audio. Alright. So this guy, the final Dracula, he's actually not anime, he's actually a giant nuclear dragon worm thing. So, yeah, alright, time.
I had you at 5209.
Cool. The 110 estimate was in case I had to play Reinhardt.
Yeah, I figured that, yeah.
Yeah, it would have been a little bit rougher.
Yeah, we were watching you last time. I'm surprised nobody donated it, like, just to make you play Reinhardt instead.
Yeah, I actually kind of expected it, just because, I don't know, there's not much Reinhardt love, and it's kind of like a different thing. But I don't know, I think maybe people just appreciate the higher level of refinement that I put into the carry run, and they just want to see that. And that's totally understandable. I mean, it is a better run, so. Alright, so that was actually one of my best Castlevania 64 marathon runs. Just that one waterfall slip up. It's always the waterfall, man. I think I've died at the waterfall every single marathon that I've done this game in. It's like there's a guaranteed waterfall death somewhere. But it's okay. Pretty happy with that run.
All right, well, yeah, we are a little bit ahead of schedule, but we're heading into the Mega Man block next with Rockman 2. That's Elenija doing the run.
Mega Man's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we got a pretty sweet block tonight. Elenija with 2, BJW with 5. We've got Rockman and Forte with Tonic, which, by the way, you guys can donate to decide whether he plays as Rockman or Forte. And right now, I think there's only like $20 involved in that bid war, so it's very easy to snipe that one. And then the big one, in my opinion, the Mega Man 9 race, Japan versus USA. Dongri and use pizza. Should be pretty good.
Bring on the Mega Man. Alternatively, you can watch these very, very long, this extremely long death animation, and then credits and final cutscenes. Or you could just jump in. Up to you.
Yeah, that's pretty long. I guess we can let it go for just a little bit longer, and then I'll switch over. I think we're still waiting for Elo, so.
All right, cool. Sounds like a plan.
But thanks again for stepping in and doing a run for us. I know that originally you had Soten on the, on the sheet, but
yeah,
I appreciate that you stuck around and did a bid war.
Yeah, the Soten run is it's extremely interesting, but it's also extremely marathon unsafe, and I think it just kind of kills the hype. I have one idea of maybe trying to figure out a way of doing it at AGDQ in a manner that wouldn't be boring or like repetitive, but more exciting. So I don't know. I'll kind of see how that turns out, but I wouldn't be surprised if I just scrap the whole thing, because it's really just such a risky run.
Yeah.
Dear chat, what is your favorite Mega Man game?
Oh boy. Okay, I changed my mind. We should have kicked you off. Everybody's favorite Mega Man discussion. What's your favorite game? Which one has the best music? It's every Mega Man stream. Okay, I think Elo's actually ready to go, so whenever you're ready to cut the stream, if you want to play it out, if you don't, that's up to you.
Alright, yeah, I can cut it. I guess I'll just cut it the moment the credits starts, which is going to be in like 30 seconds or something.
Sounds good. And yes, chat was destroyed. Alright. At least we got it out of the way. Wait, who said Mega Man 2 Wily 1? I know you're lying. I saw the mod symbol. Checkers. Got a liar.
Actually, I kind of forgot how long this cutscene was. It should be over quite soon, though. Just gotta wait for the fierce throw the head into the wind pose, and then I can cut it. I'll be satisfied.
Okay, I have a big announcement to make.